It's Wednesday, January 8th, 2025. Wildfire devastates Pacific Palisades and threatens Los Angeles. Trump holds court at Mar-a-Lago, and two of the stupidest things I've heard in recent memory. Next on the AM Update. Thousands of people fled their homes as a brush fire in the Pacific Palisades neighborhood in the Los Angeles, California metro quickly spread to 1,260 acres Tuesday, a blaze that authorities said could grow further as even stronger winds swept through the area overnight. Winds in the area were blowing 40 miles per hour when the wildfire sparked Tuesday morning before quickly exploding in size, spreading 200 acres within an hour. The Los Angeles Fire Department first reported at 10:30 a.m. that the fire had broke out near 1190 North Pedra Morada Drive just hours later around 3 p.m. Fire authorities estimated it had reached 1,262 acres. About 30,000 people have been evacuated, while an estimated 10,367 houses remain threatened by the quickly moving flames. Santa Ana winds strengthened later in the evening, peaking from 10 p.m. to 3 o'clock this morning, potentially complicating firefighting efforts. The latest that I saw at recording time, the Getty actually was starting to catch fire, according to a couple of different reports. Be sure to keep those involved in the path of this fire in your prayers. If you look at the direction of this fire, as it stands, as the latest indicators stand, the direction that this fire is spreading is straight into Los Angeles proper. Again, pray for all those in that fire's path. Donald Trump held court at Mar-a-Lago yesterday. It was originally just a press conference to announce a $20 billion investment from an Emirati company called Daymac to build data centers in 8 states, including Texas, Arizona, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Ohio, Illinois, Michigan, and Indiana. I've never heard of that company before, but a $20 billion investment in a lot of key states that voted for Trump. That's a pretty big deal, but Trump actually used that press conference, that announcement, as an opportunity to field questions from the press. He declared he's going to reverse President Biden's offshore drilling ban on day one. Of course, that offshore drilling ban was just one last FU on the way out the door from the Biden administration. He also said he's going to have it be U.S. policy where no more wind turbines are going to be built. That's a good thing. Hopefully he follows through. He also said he's going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. He said, quote, "What a beautiful name. It's appropriate." Whatever. I'm more partial to the American Gulf. I think that sounds better. That kind of comes off the tongue better than the Gulf of America. Then there was this. He also said this about hostages in the Middle East.
All hell must be paid if they don't release the hostages.
You know what that means, don't you? Well, do I have to define it for you? Look, all hell will break out. If those hostages aren't back, I don't want to hurt your negotiation. If they're not back by the time I get into office, all hell will break out in the Middle East.
And then the topic du jour, at least really of this week, is whether or not the United States should annex, acquire, otherwise hostily take over places like Greenland and the Panama Canal. He was asked about this topic in some level of depth, including this question about whether or not military annexation would be off the table. Listen to this.
I can't assure you, you're talking about Panama and Greenland. No, I can't assure you on either of those two. But I can say this. We need them for economic security. The Panama Canal was built for our military.
Back during the first Trump administration, when he first broached the possibility of acquiring Greenland, I thought it was just a troll. I thought it was hilarious at the time. From what I understand now, there were some close to Trump's orbit that are actually indicating that was closer to being a done deal than anybody actually thought. It seems like they're actually serious about it this time. Here's Don Trump Jr. yesterday. He visited Greenland himself, the capital of Nuuk, with Charlie Kirk. Here he is.
Guys, we're here in Nuuk, Greenland. This is the founder, 1721. That yellow house with the red top, that was his original spot. That's where he moved. This is where it all started out here. Just incredible scenery. Super cool stuff.
That was Don Trump Jr. touring Greenland, the capital of Nuuk, yesterday with Turning Point USA's Charlie Kirk. Now, I still think this sounds far-fetched. For the reasons that are being discussed, I don't think it's a terrible reason at all. Now, I don't know how serious they actually are about it, But by some estimates, China accounts for 80% of the world's extraction and refining of rare earth materials. 80%. That's a de facto monopoly. There are a lot of those rare earth materials that are in Greenland, that if they were willing to extract them and refine, and that's a big if they were willing to extract and refine them, and if the United States got their hands on them, that would maybe threaten China's stranglehold on the rare earth minerals and materials market. So I don't think it's a terrible idea at all. The Panama Canal, that should have been retaken by force by the United States 30 years ago. I hope that happens on day 2 of the Trump administration. Hey, just want to let you know our poll of the week is live right now on X at Real AM Update. You can go there where I asked you, Matthew Livelsberger. He is the Las Vegas bomber. I asked you what you think actually happened with that story. I gave you 4 options: psychiatric break, abducted by some domestic force, abducted by some foreign force, or other, and you can explain in the comments. I'm seeing the results as they sit right now, and boy howdy, they're kind of surprising. Let me know what you think. Go and vote in that poll. There's only going to be a few hours left by the time most of you listen to this. Matthew Livelsberger, the Las Vegas bomber, alleged. What do you think happened to him? We'll discuss those results on the Thursday Air Analysis. The U.S. House of Representatives passed the Laken-Riley Act to ensure illegal aliens committing crimes like shoplifting face detention and deportation. 159 Democrats voted against it. Named after Laken-Riley, of course, Georgia nursing student who should have never been murdered by Jose Ibarra, who faces life in prison without the possibility of parole. Over in the Senate, Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman is the first and so far only Democrat sponsor of the Laken-Riley Act. Again, that bill will ensure detention and deportation of criminal aliens before they can commit heinous crimes like they did to Laken-Riley. United States District Court Judge Aileen Cannon issued an order Tuesday that blocks the release of Special Counsel Jack Smith's report on the 2 now dismissed federal cases against President-elect Donald Trump. Cannon previously oversaw one of the cases against Trump, which accused him of mishandling classified documents. In the summer, Cannon dismissed the indictment against the president-elect, ruling that Smith was unconstitutionally appointed to the special counsel position. However, Cannon's dismissal did not apply to Trump's co-defendants, longtime aide Walt Nauta and Mar-a-Lago property manager Carlos de Oliveira, who each face several criminal charges. The Biden administration's Department of Justice has continued to pursue a case against Nauta and de Oliveira. Smith has called Cannon's ruling to dismiss the case against Trump over his appointment, quote, a flawed analysis. Best of luck to you, Jack Smith. I hope I never have to utter your stupid name again. Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida announced yesterday that their grand jury investigation into claims by various vaccine, see that as jab manufacturers, like the COVID style, their grand jury is now concluded, or at least very close to concluding. In a statement released on social media, DeSantis said, quote, while we are still reading through the report and its recommendations, it details that through deception and taking, quote, advantage of scientific journal infrastructure to hide adverse events from the public, Big Pharma engaged in a pattern of deceptive and obfuscatory behavior. Big Pharma brought in billions of dollars in profit, and the federal government amplified bogus studies, all while suppressing any opposition that went against their preferred narrative. Instead of federal agencies acting as a backstop to bad incentives, they worked closely with Big Pharma as they cut corners, even becoming unpaid advertisers on their behalf. The grand jury has made a number of recommendations that should be followed. The status quo cannot continue. The American people deserve transparency on how Big Pharma is using their federal tax dollars, and they deserve regulating entities that operate as watchdogs, not as cheerleaders. Amen to that. I'd kind of forgotten about this grand jury. This was a big hullabaloo about 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago when it was originally announced. Finally coming to its conclusion. It's going to be one story, of course, of many that's going to be very important to follow in the new year. Meta, that is the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, announced this week that UFC president and CEO Dana White is joining their board of directors. The night or morning after making that announcement, Meta CEO and founder founder, Mark Zuckerberg, released a lengthy statement explaining, well, he feels really bad, right? He feels really bad about censoring millions of Americans' access to a free and open platform. He says he's getting rid of watchdogs, of fact checkers, because they've been too political. And he says he wants to implement community notes similar to X.
I want to talk about something important today, because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression, and I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years. There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more. A lot of this is clearly political, but there's also a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there. Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation. These are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly.
So Mark Zuckerberg goes on for another 5 minutes there, waxing poetic about how he's turned a new leaf, how Facebook is going to be different this time around. I really tried to give, when this news broke, I tried to give somebody who probably doesn't deserve the benefit of the doubt the most benefit of the doubt. But then I saw this headline from the Babylon Bee, and I lost. I lost any benefit of the doubt that I had previously held. This headline, guy who said Facebook was not suppressing free speech announces Facebook will stop suppressing free speech. I'm going to keep somewhat of an open mind here, but I'm not optimistic. The best thing that could happen here is for Mark Zuckerberg to actually, real life, grovel, get down on his hands and knees before somebody and say, I have sinned, I have fallen short of the glory of God, please forgive me. He's not doing that here. He's just trying to make it look like he's always been on your side, and we just messed up a few times. Nope, you didn't. Y'all are a bunch of criminals as far as I'm concerned. All right, maybe stop listening now if you don't want your IQ to go down by several notches. I couldn't let this go. I try not to respond to everything or anything that The View says, but this is just beyond the pale. Here they are on January 6th, talking about the most deadliest day in American history.
I think we need to find moral clarity, in this country. And I just remember after January 6th, you had someone like Mitch McConnell placing the blame on January 6th where it belonged, squarely on Donald Trump's shoulders. Mm-hmm. And then you started seeing people backtrack that mm-hmm. and losing their moral center. You had Condoleezza Rice, I believe, on this very show saying, we need to move on from January 6th. Mm-hmm. I say no. You don't move on, because January 6th was an atrocity. It was one of the worst moments in American history. And when you think about the worst moments in American history, like World War II, things that happened, like the Holocaust, chattel slavery.
January 6th is like the Holocaust, World War II, and slavery. Yes, grannies taking selfies in the Capitol Rotunda. That's literally the Holocaust. Guys, there's how many people are on The View? 2, 3, 4 panelists? Whatever the number is, their collective IQ would not be able to get out of bed in the morning. I'm convinced. They are just that retarded. They are that is why that word exists, is those women on The View. And now here's this. This is former Democrat presidential candidate Andrew Yang, interviewed by Mario Nawfal, talking about the dynamic at play in the Democratic Party post-2024 election, with the dynamic playing out between Joe Biden, establishment Democrats, progressive Democrats. Listen to this.
Talking about Elon, Joe Rogan, Tulsi, RFK, and even Trump himself.
Oh, I do want to return to RFK. RFK had and has a genuine following, and I thought that that was a big needle mover for Trump, for sure. Like, I know tons of people who support RFK who supported Trump as a result of RFK heading that direction. And I think there was a period of time, according to reporting, I don't have direct knowledge, but he was open to talking to Kamala and the Democrats about something similar, and then Kamala and the Democrats didn't want to have that conversation, which I saw as
Where's the logic there?
mistake.
I don't understand. What's the? I'm sure they're not stupid people. Why would they not have those discussions? What am I missing here?
Well, so this is, I'm happy to dig into this. By the way, I was also on their talk to Andrew, don't use Andrew list because I had been so vocal about Joe Biden passing the torch. And if you remember, the Kamala team overlapped with the Biden team significantly. And so there were apparently some bad feelings over there. The quote that I was given was, I had crossed the line in my calling for Joe Biden.
So this is no logical decisions. It's pure jealousy, pure emotions that led them to not speak to RFK and not speak to you?
I think those are probably different considerations. In my case, it struck me as pettiness over ill will about my publicly saying Joe Biden should step aside, even though it was obvious and everyone knew that, and then he did step aside. So if you think, and by the way, in terms of that category, the most prominent person to make that case was not me, it was Dean Phillips, because he was a sitting member of Congress who actually ran against Joe. And there was zero, oh, shoot, Dean, turns out you were right all along. Like, let's give you a spot at the, to speak at the DNC. Let's bring you back into the fold. Meanwhile, Dean is out of Congress because he went against Joe Biden like at a time when the party was just defending and enabling Joe. Now, RFK is a different thing, where the Democratic machine had innumerable hit pieces on RFK when he was running. And so what happens on that side is that when you get on the other side of the machine then villainizes you and demonizes you as crank or whatnot. And then when it's time to try and win, they can't turn around and say, oh, it turns out you're a reasonable person, let's welcome you into the coalition. Though I'm going to say that it's obvious if you're trying to win that you do welcome people into the coalition because they're additive. It's like, look, does this person have a following? Yes. And the Democrats aren't wired that way. The Democrats are wired more to think, and I was joking with someone, it's almost like the Democrats are saying, we don't want that type of voter. Like some votes they want, some votes they don't want, which is obviously a terrible way to try and win.
That is former Democrat presidential candidate Andrew Yang, interviewed by Mario Nawfal, describing Democrats basically as stuck in the mud. Now, they are very petty. As there's a machine that you better not get on the wrong side of, or else they're going to call you a crank. Dissing the Democrats for failing to welcome people into their coalition. You might listen to that 3 minutes and think, wow, what a reasonable, self-aware Democrat. I'll just leave you with this. Andrew Yang voted for Kamala Harris. And finally, air analysis, slightly acidic, mostly necessary. I was a little late to this party. Finally got around to it, 10 years in the making, but I finally, over Christmas break, I watched the movie Sicario. Now, I watched Sicario, Day of the Soldado as well. The second one is pretty stupid in my estimation. Maybe that's a conversation for another day. But I thought the first Sicario was incredible. So this stars Emily Blunt, Josh Brolin, Benicio del Toro. Really fantastic movie, fantastic story, and the craftsmanship of the cinematography, really, really good as well. But what stood out to me about Sicario is that the story and the plot line illustrates what a real fight with the cartels would look like. And this is for 3 reasons. It would require good guys to be cold-blooded killers. You see the Americans in this movie, and it follows this joint task force between Delta Force, CIA, FBI. They're trying to smoke out one of the main cartel kingpins by trying to kidnap his brother, force him into the United States, and this and that. And I'll get to why they're doing that in a little bit. But the Americans in this movie, the good guys, they are cold-blooded. They kind of operate on the periphery of what normal, ordered military action looks like, but they're doing it for, well, what you think is a greater purpose in the end. It also, in the real world, if you went to war with the cartels, that would require the horrors of those cartels to be known stateside. And to some degree, that's already true. But if you truly go to war with the cartels, they're not going to push back all the way, but they will at the very beginning to see how serious the American government is. They're not stupid. They're not going to go with America. They're not going to go to war with America. But they want to see how serious we are about defending our borders. And I think that's illustrated perfectly in the opening scene, where they go to raid this drug house in Arizona. They find unspeakable things hidden in the walls, booby trap out in the shed, things like that. I'm not saying that, but I'm not trying to be the embodiment of the meme, just like the movies. No, I'm not trying to be that. I'm just saying that if you seriously go to war with the cartels, they're going to go to war for a little while back, and that would be horrifying on American soil. And finally, I think this would be a good illustration of what a war with the cartels would look like in real life, because at the end, you find out the end goal probably isn't what you would actually want. Now, I'm trying not to give too many things away. The movie's 10 years old, almost 10 years old, so, I'm not too worried about spoilers here. But you think they're actually trying to get rid of the cartels and get rid of the drug trade. No, this joint task force, all they're trying to do is get rid of the Mexican cartels to consolidate power back into the Medellin cartels in South America, who are more easily controlled and easier to work with. That's the end goal. So whatever the war with the cartels would look like, it's probably not going to line up precisely with what you and I would like to see, but at least working with a cartel that's more easily controlled, I guess that's good news. Anyway, I loved Sicario. I thought it would just perfectly, not perfectly, but as close as Hollywood could get to illustrating what a real fight with the cartels would look like. That'll do it for this Wednesday. We'll be back at it again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntyre, and this is the AM Update.